Is there a YouTube setting that you're missing that is the reason why you're not getting views? You're putting all this time in and you're thinking to yourself, man, there's got to be a setting that I'm missing because my videos just are not getting the views. Well, I had a subscriber email me the other day and he asked that question and I answered him and I gave him a really detailed answer. And that's what I want to give you here today. Because no, there is not a setting or one little checkbox that you can make that's going to make the world of difference. Now, do you want to optimize your videos? Yes, and I'll talk about that here in a little bit. But right now, I want to talk about this. And I actually broke it down here. Basically everything that I shared with him, I'm going to share with you. And this is what I'm calling cracking the YouTube code. Because if you do this right here, it doesn't matter about the settings in there. I'll let you in on a little secret of my own. We don't even put tags in our back end anymore. All right. We've been testing that. Now, are we always going to leave them out? Maybe not, but right now we're testing it and we're doing okay. So just because you have settings and certain people have tags doesn't mean that that is why they are getting more views. It's usually going to come down to these three things. All right, so let's just dig in. I'm gonna go ahead and fill this first one in and then we're gonna talk about it. And this is how we're gonna let the algorithm know that you are actually there, that your video is there. All right, the first one, you might have already guessed it, the title. It is the most important piece. Doesn't matter what settings you have, that's the one setting that you need to have right. Because if you don't have that right, it's not going to signal the algorithm. It's not gonna let the algorithm know who you're trying to target, or it's just too vague, or maybe it's just too competitive. All right. So your title is so important. And that is where I would start. And that's what I advised this gentleman that emailed me. All right. Because if we do this, all of this stuff is going to also play into the next thing that I'm going to share with you, which is going to not just get you found. All right. Because the title is going to get you impressions. When people are browsing, that's an impression. That's what that's going to do. But once we get that, now we need to do these other two things. Again, it doesn't matter what settings you have in the back end. None of that's going to matter if we don't have this right. And just to let you know, once again, there is no magic setting. I know it sucks, but there's not. Oh, and before I go any further, if you do need help with titles, because it is the most important piece, I've actually created a document with 10 of our top titles that I turned into templates. And you can take those and adapt them to your own niche. And if you want them, just go ahead and put hooks in the comments. Once again, just put hooks in the comments and I'll send you a copy. And like I said, I broke them down. I give about 3 or 4 different examples on how they can be used. So this way here, you can draw inspiration and really plug them into your own niche. So again, if you want that, just put hooks in the comments and I'll send you a copy. Just like that. Look at that magic editing that we just did. All right, so thumbnail. Okay, that's the next piece. Now, you probably already heard this. You're like, Scott, I've already heard all this stuff. Stay with me. All right, stay with me because it's going to all make sense here because this right here does not get seen if we don't actually have the title that gives it impressions, all right? Or has that thumbnail show up as an impression is displayed, all right? So we use the title for the impression. Then from there, we need that click-through, right? We need to get the clicks. If you're getting a low click-through rate, like below 5%, you need to work on that, all right? That's what you need to focus on. Not a magic button or not a setting in the back end of YouTube. You need to start working on those two immediately. Let me show you what it looks like in the back end here. So if I go into overview, into reach, I can look right here and see that my click-through rate after 1.6 million impressions is a 5.9%, which is pretty good for that many impressions. Typically, once you get more impressions like that, your click-through rate is going to go down. I've seen some other channels where it'll get down to about 3.5 to 4%, and they're happy with it because there's so many more impressions. And what this basically means when they're giving out more impressions is that video is being pushed. And it is the algorithm saying, hey, let's go ahead and find more audiences. They might not be perfect audiences, but let's test it. And then that's why that can bring your click-through rate down. In this case, it's held really well at 5.9%. Now, once we get good click-through rate, again, I say above 5%, that lets the algorithm know that, okay, this title, it's resonating, and the thumbnail, it's getting clicks. Okay, so now what? Well, let's move on to number 3. All right, and the last one is your intro hook. All right, that is where we are going to, in the first 10 seconds, we need to grab the attention. We need to hook the audience. And what that's going to do is that's also going to signal the algorithm, and it's going to say, hey, this title showed up, this thumbnail showed up, the click-through rate is pretty good. Now let's analyze how well people are sticking around. That's the R, that's retention. Okay, so what we want to do here is we want to focus on really creating a good intro. And I don't mean an intro with a ton of graphics or B-roll or any fancy edits. If you go back and watch this video, you will see an example of a good intro because I came right out with exactly what the video was about, but I also kind of left it a little bit of a curiosity-based intro where you're like, okay, I'm listening. And then you're like, wait a minute, there isn't a setting, but you're telling me that there's actually a code that we can use. I'm listening, right? So I basically set it up to let you know that yes, I'm going to be sharing this, but also there's not a setting, but yet there is something that you should be aware of. Okay. So the intro, super important. And these are things that we can look at in the analytics. YouTube gives us all this information. It gives us our impressions to let us know how our title's doing. It gives us our thumbnail click-through rate, let us know how our clicks are doing, right? And then it gives us our retention for the first 30 seconds. And we usually like to stay above 65% if we can. We've had some as high as 80%, not often, but I mean, that's really, you're crushing it if you're getting 80%. But usually 65% is a good rule of thumb, all right? Now you might be wondering, where do you see this? Well, let me show you. So if you scroll down here, you can see right here, it's giving me the first 30 seconds. And as you can see, 68% of viewers are still watching at around the 30-second mark. But this is really interesting. So if I hover right here, 9 seconds in, 88% of people are still watching. And as I go through here, that's 14 seconds, 80%. And then right here, 24 seconds, 70%. So yes, we are losing viewers, but it's above average. And here's the deal. Like I was saying, if we can give YouTube what it wants, well, they're going to give us what we want, and that is more views. And if we get all of these, guess what happens? Okay? We're focusing on the things that matter, the things that the algorithm is looking at. And if we supply the algorithm with what it wants, because at the end of the day, the algorithm wants to get viewers to watch more videos. And how does it do that? By creating good videos that they enjoy. And these are the markers that they are actually using to give that video more push. Now, of course, you still have to have really good content. You still have to be able to keep them longer than just that 30 seconds, but you definitely need to get them at least to want to stick around for the rest of the video in the first place. So we have the algorithm signal by the title getting those impressions. Then from there, we're getting the clicks. Then from there, we're hooking in the very beginning. And that is done with that intro piece. All right. And if you focus on that, that's why I have it right here. If you focus on that, it doesn't matter about the settings. This right here, the title, that's in a sense to me like a setting. Because if you set that right, the algorithm will see it and then everything else will follow. Now, I know I talked a lot about titles because none of this matters if we don't have a great title. And that's why I went deeper right here in another video where I break down those 10 titles that I mentioned earlier, and I show you even more examples on how to use them. Watch that video next, and I'll see you there.